I will now call the September 6, 2017 Blue Springs City Council meeting to order. If you would stand with me, observe a moment of silence, and I will lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. I want to welcome you in attendance, as well as those that might be watching cable TV, to tonight's City Council meeting. Before we go to the consent agenda, I want to welcome back our former city attorney, Bob McDonald, who is filling in for Jackie Summers, who is on vacation. So welcome back, Bob.
Thank you.
Right. Now we'll go to the consent agenda. There are items that need to be pulled. If not, I accept a motion for approval.
So moved.
Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Councilman Kaler.
Aye.
Councilman Levisay.
Aye.
Councilman Fowler.
Aye.
Councilman Carter.
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson.
Aye.
Councilman Culpepper.
Aye.
Mayor Ross.
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Next is a discussion and motion on the council compensation allowance and expenses. I had Cheryl do a comparative with a number of cities on the Missouri side as well as some on the Kansas side, but you'll find this interesting is that our compensation has not been changed since 2003. And as I take a look at those cities we did comparatives on, the mayor of Florissant makes $135,746 a year.
You're not moving anytime soon, are you?
Florissant is starting to sound better every day. And they're smaller than Blue Springs, only 52,000 people. The City of Independence mayor made $21,500, but they increased hers, and it'll be effective next year to $40,000. Council was increased from $11,500 to $20,000 each. St. Charles, 68,000 people, their mayor makes $75,000 a year, and the council makes $10,000. St. Peter's, who was tied for population is same as Blue Springs in 2010, their mayor makes $40,000 a year, and the council makes $14,961. The cities that really have a bargain with their people is Blue Springs and Lee Summit. The mayor of Lee Summit and Blue Springs makes $18,000 a year, and the council makes $7,800 a year. So if you think we're rolling in the dough, think again. We don't do this for the money, we do it for the love of the city and to make the city the very best that it could be. Oftentimes tell people, if I want to make more money, I could become a greeter at Walmart and probably have a lot less headaches than to do this, but I do this because I love this job, and I'm sure I speak for every one of you that's sitting here doing it. You do it because you want this to be the best city it could possibly be, and certainly I've lived in this city for almost 44 years, and think it's the greatest city, not only in the state of Missouri, but in the nation. We couldn't think of it living any other place. So unless you all want to change.
Well, Your Honor, we are the city that's on the right track, so I think we should keep going down that track and not make a change myself. So I would make a motion that we stay with what we are,
Okay,
where we are.
The motion will officially read, continue compensation structure as approved by the ordinance 3533 on January 21st, 2003, without change. So moved.
So moved.
And
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman Levesey?
Aye.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Carter?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Culpepper? Aye. Councilman Kaler?
Aye.
Mayor Ross?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Okay, next we will go to a public hearing on a rezoning of St. Mary's second plat. And this is continued from the July 17th, August 21st. No, then it's going to be continued to October 2nd. Wow. How many times can we continue this thing? But anyway, is there a motion to continue?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next, we have a public hearing on a rezoning of Tidal Wave Auto Spa.
Same thing.
That's also going to be continued to October 2nd. Is there a motion to continue?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Pretty soon, we're going to run out of space for continuances on this thing. Okay, next we have a public hearing on the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget. We're going to go to our city administrator. Oh, you want to go ahead and do
Yes.
that first?
Mayor, the city has a following exhibit to enter into the record. City Council Information Form dated August 28, 2017, from Assistant City Administrator Christine Cates with the following attachments. Budget in brief, notice of public hearing published in the Examiner on August 15, 2017, and Bill number 4514 adopting the fiscal year 2017-18 budget. This is all we have to offer for the record.
Okay, Mr. Johnson.
Mayor and City Council, in accordance with the city charter requirement, I submitted the proposed 2017-18 city budget to you on August 1, 2017. A budget work session was subsequently held on August 17th, and this budget that is before you tonight remains consistent with what was presented and discussed at that meeting. I understand there are some people that are going to be here tonight who have been very interested. We've had a Facebook Live town hall meeting, and we know there's been a number of social media inquiries and questions asked about various things in the budget, which we will get to tonight. The total budget is $68.3 million, and it reflects a 3.5% increase. It's very important to note that this budget is currently balanced, and for those in attendance and those who might be watching, that means that our existing and projected revenues meet our existing and projected expenses, which means that we are not dipping into any of our allocated or reserve funds. And in light of some of the news that we heard last week with some of our neighboring communities, that is a very important issue for local government. The general fund, which is where most of our personnel expenses are budgeted, is increasing 12%, and that is approximately a $3.1 million increase. Those increases relate to the funding of capital projects with one-time revenues and an increase of $440,000 in personnel-related expenses, which includes, at this point in time, unless there are changes, a 2% across the board raise for employees in April of 2018. Also includes increases in employee benefits, health care, retirement, work comp, and other fixed costs that are related to payroll. Other general fund operating expenses, which include contractual supplies and capital outlay, have remained flat or they have been decreased. The capital improvement budget, which is included and which is a major component of our annual budget, is consistent with what this city council approved on June 5th, 2017, with one exception, and that is the reallocation of our street overlay funds of $2.3 million and some additional funds so that we can address a very important need in District 1, which is the Roanoke Street Improvement Project. This budget also marks the first year of the 5-year Parks Sales Tax Deferred Maintenance Program, and so you were going to see funding included for that. That was voter approved in last April. The CDBG programming is consistent with the plan that has been previously approved by the City Council. All general fund reserves and contingencies are met and maintained at levels that are established by council policy. And you know, you heard this at our budget work session, but because of relatively flat growth in our general fund revenues, you know that this particular budget presented myself and staff with a number of challenges that we had to seriously contemplate and evaluate in order to balance this budget. And you are aware that I started that process by reorganizing my own department and eliminating 2 full-time positions in the administration department, which resulted in the elimination of the deputy city administrator position and a communications specialist, which supports Kim Nakahoto and her programming and services. This has required the reallocation of duties, assignments, and the downsizing of some very important internal and external projects. Many of you know what I'm talking about. Increasing costs associated with the Pink Hill Park Recycling Center has resulted in my recommending that we close the recycling center effective October 1. Not a popular recommendation, and I know you've received many inquiries, emails that you've responded to, and there were a number of people that showed up at the Facebook Town Hall live meeting expressing their concern about this. As you know, we provide, through a partnership and collaboration with KCATA, commuter bus services that provides 4 bus trips, 4 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, that provide commuter transportation to downtown Kansas City. KCATA has worked with us very graciously to help reduce our budget allocation. We will be proposing a reduction in that service from 4 buses to 3 buses. The per trip dollar fare remains the same at $3. This budget also includes a partnership with the Blue Springs School District, in which ownership of the Centennial Pool Complex will be transferred to the Blue Springs School District. City of Blue Springs has owned and operated the Centennial Pool Complex, I believe, since 1978, and it is very important to our community, very important also to the school district, as I believe their competitive swim team operates and trains out of that facility. With the transfer of this ownership responsibility, the school district will assume all capital and operational liability of the facility. And with approval of this budget, if you do approve it, this is first reading tonight, we would start this transfer process in early October. And finally, I want to take the time to thank our staff for their diligence and hard work in developing a budget that continues to support the priorities as established and identified by the council's strategic visioning framework that was adopted in 2015. And you know, we always use the citizen survey as a benchmark and indicator for how we address programs and services in this community. And I believe this budget attempts to address a majority of those. Your Honor, this concludes my comments, and we will stand for any questions that you may have.
Any questions of the council to our city administrator before I go to the public? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience like to speak in support of? In support of? In opposition to? Opposition to?
You've got one.
You want to come up? Do I have, this your sheet?
Marsha Warner.
Okay. Marcia Warner?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you want to be sworn in by the?
Sure.
So swear the testimony about to give in this case, to give the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do. Thank you. I did email the Honorable Mayor and all the City Council members, so I won't waste your time with reading that email again. And 3 of you responded. I do appreciate that. I missed the Facebook town hall, and I am a concerned citizen for the Pink Hill Recycling Center. I'm a person that usually goes there late on Sunday afternoons, and it is overflowing. Now, I understand that maybe because other cities are there. I also understand that I was not aware, but there was research done, and I appreciate that. However, I'm wondering if we do have a count of how many Blue Springs residents use that area, and how many of them would be in the retirement age, which would find the recycling costs per year of $260 kind of prohibitive. So I'm just still asking that the City Council will look at other options besides closing, or maybe, I understand that you have some people working with the Solid Waste Commission. I'm just hoping that we can keep Blue Springs a green community, an eco-friendly community, and because of our parks and our association with Baroque Woods, I think it's important for us to stay a green community, even though all the surrounding cities are not.
You know, what I want to, and I certainly did respond to your email
Yes, sir.
about the Solid Waste Commission, and we certainly encourage you to get involved in that process,
Okay.
to try to come up with a sustainable, long-term solution to the
Great.
issue. So
And how do I go about doing that?
One of the staff members will let you know
All right, appreciate
before
that.
you leave tonight.
Okay, thank you.
When they're meeting, because I think they have a meeting coming up pretty soon.
Defer to Mr. Scott.
When is the next meeting?
Next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, September 20th in the community room at the end of the hall here.
Okay, thank you very much. Is it at the same time? 6 p.m.?
6:30.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Was anyone on the council like to make any motions? Mayor Pro Tem?
We need to introduce the ordinance.
Oh, we got to introduce it already, okay. I'm trying to jump the gun here. Who would like to introduce it?
I'll introduce it, Your Honor.
Okay.
First reading of Bill Number 4514, an ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the annual operating and capital budgets of the City of Blue Springs, Missouri for the fiscal year October 1st, 2017 to September 30th, 2018.
Move the bill be approved on its first reading only.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Your Honor, is this the time to offer amendments to the budget?
Now's your time.
All right, I have. I'll pass them down.
Yeah, you gotta share.
Well, tonight we are joined by many members of the Blue Springs Police Department. They're along the back row there. I recognize the faces. They're out of uniform tonight, but we really appreciate you, what you do for this city. I think I speak on behalf of the entire City Council. I've met with several of you as we've ramped up to this budget, and the theme that is recurring over and over again is a step plan, so that you know when you come into the job, if you meet certain marks, you're going to progress through your employment with the City of Blue Springs one step at a time. You're going to know where you are every step of the way. We've had many discussions about that. We've debated it internally, and so tonight I am going to present the following amendment to the budget: that we amend the budget by $30,000 to provide funds in the Human Resources Department for staff to take steps necessary to engage a third-party consultant with the knowledge, understanding, and experience necessary to help staff and the council reevaluate the development of a compensation step plan system for the entire organization, not just the police department, but if it's a good idea for the police department, it's a good idea for the entire organization. And that revenue estimates in the general fund be increased by $30,000 to offset the additional expense. This is money that we have in the budget, I'm understanding from something we passed in the consent agenda, and that relates to item C in the consent agenda. Am I correct?
That's correct. That is correct. You want me to answer any questions relative to that?
Well, I just don't want to a little bit more on this. I mean, I think this is something really good that we need to get to. Other cities are doing it, but I want a third party to look at it, to study it. I've got numbers from several people. I'd like to see an outside objective resource come in and study it and see if we can't get there.
Is there a second?
Your Honor, I will second that, but I would also like to say that our city employees, both police department, public works, city hall, all of our employees work very, very hard. And you're all a very important, integral part of making this city what it is, a successful city, a city that people want to come to live in because they feel safe. They have good streets as best we can do with the funds that we have available. I am all for, I think we all ought to have a raise. But unfortunately, we only have so many dollars. And in order to do the fiscally responsible thing, we need to have someone come in and look at what we have, what's being proposed, so that we could put hard dollars to it to make good, sensible decisions. So, and on that, I will make the second to the motion.
I think you already seconded before you discussed it.
I'll do it again.
Your Honor, if I may comment on this before we proceed further, I also had a resolution to read in that basically said the same thing that what Councilman Carter has presented, other than it was just strictly related to the police department as far as a step plan. And I can't see us taking two different votes on this thing. I've counted heads, and I think probably Councilman Carter has the best option as far as getting this through, but I would like to offer an amendment to his amendment if he would consider it. And I don't know whether this is a proper time to do that.
I will go to, as an amendment, not as that resolution.
Not my resolution, but what I would like to do is try to amend the wording of his resolution.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney?
If it is still an amendment to the budget and not some other type of decision.
Okay.
Basically, what I would like to do would be to add in the wording where it said experience and necessary to help staff and council evaluate the development, I would like to add evaluate and implement. And my logic is this, that to me, and this is just a philosophy on my side, is that I think you have to decide that you want to do something, because then you'll figure out how to do it. And it seems like this, what we're doing is we're going to look at things and say, okay, can we do this? But we haven't committed to doing it yet. And my feeling from council was that we were wanting to do this, we just need a way to go about doing it. And I know it's kind of flipping things around, but I don't think if we don't say we're going to implement something, we could do a study on it, we could put it up on the shelf, and we could walk away from it. And if we say we're going to implement it, then that puts pressure on us to try to get this thing done. And so that's what I would like to do, is add and implement behind evaluation and between the development.
I'll second that.
Well, let's go to our city attorney.
We're discussing an agenda item that's the budget. An amendment was made to the budget, but once we get into changing the amendment to implement a step plan, we have gone beyond what was on the agenda. There's nothing on the agenda tonight that would inform the public that the council is going to make a decision about the implementation of a step plan for the employees of the city of Blue Springs. And the Sunshine Law, the Open Meetings Law, same thing, requires that things be on the agenda unless it's some kind of an emergency like flood or...
Your Honor, doesn't this resolution have a budgetary impact and then therefore make it applicable to what we're discussing tonight? Does he just need to add a number and then it would be allowed?
Well, if you add a number, then you got to be able to figure out what that number is and how that's going to have an effect
I
on
mean,
the
it's got a
budget.
$30,000 impact on the budget. That's what the resolution is to isolate $30,000 from the budget for the study. So it has a budgetary impact and therefore would be applicable to what we're discussing tonight.
But I think.
Well,
Go ahead.
but Councilman Levacy, once you put in there that we are deciding, you all are deciding to implement a step plan, you are going beyond the decision on the budget. The decision on the budget is simply to spend some money which is in the budget to go forward and study something.
Even if it just expresses an intention and not an actual plan to, it still would qualify that way.
The way I heard it, it expressed a decision.
So if we were to amend Councilman Edmondson to say with the intention to implement, would that be acceptable?
Well, obviously, if you're going to do a study, somebody must be thinking about implementing it.
Right, but the
I mean,
intention
that's
is to put
inherent.
it in writing. So if we were to amend the writing to say with the intention to implement, would that be acceptable from a Sunshine Law standpoint?
I think it's pushing the Sunshine Law too far, because you're committing yourself, you're saying you're committed to doing this, and that commitment goes beyond what's been on the agenda so far.
Your Honor?
Yes.
To say that you're going to implement this, we don't know what we're implementing. We have no dollar amount, we have no plan, we don't have anything in front of us that says what it is we intend to implement. We know the $30,000 is being set aside to research, so that when we look at those options available, we have some concrete. There is no way I'm going to vote yes for something on a budget and I don't know what it is. You got to have that information, you have to have those hard facts before you can implement anything.
Can I say something? There's a majority on this council that wants to move forward with this. So it's incumbent on us, once we get this study, to press that forward. I don't think we can tie ourselves to it with this particular motion, but once we get that study, it's incumbent on us who support this to move it forward.
Absolutely. Anyone else? So that motion does not stand.
Understand?
Now, are we ready to vote on the motion
The motion to
to amend? We're going to roll call this.
Wait. Are we voting on Kent's motion or just?
No.
The original
we're
motion.
voting
Just
on
Dale's original motion.
On
Okay.
Dale's. Kent's motion does not
Just-
stand.
Right.
This is the vote on the first motion to amend. Councilman Levesey?
Aye.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Carter?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Reluctantly, aye.
I can't put that in the notes. Councilman
It's an aye.
Culpepper?
Aye.
Councilman Kaler?
Aye.
Mayor Ross?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Okay, motion carries. Anyone else?
Honor, if I may, and I may not be able to do this because of what our attorney said. I would like to make a change to the budget, and in doing so, try to resurrect the recycling center. And what I'm offering is to switch the contribution that we make to the busing service, the $50,000, and switch that over to fund the recycling center. And you mentioned it as far as the Solid Waste Commission. My idea would be is I don't think it's necessarily council's responsibility to come up with the exact plan on how to do this. I did some math on it. Our recycle numbers went up tremendously when the area, all the area cities quit doing recycling. I think if we go back and implement a surcharge per trip, both for resident and non-resident, obviously making the non-resident ones more expensive. My suggestion would do a $3 resident, a $6 non-resident, but I would leave that up to the Solid Waste Commission to look at that and study that and give recommendations on that. I've run the numbers based on the information that was presented to us from the Parks and Rec Department as far as quantity of runs, the cost of expense as far as having somebody there staffing it, and then looking at, say, if we did put a dollar figure per trips. Basically, I've run this back by Eric Johnson. He and I have talked about this. Essentially, the impact could possibly be around $25,000 to $26,000 to our budget additional if the number of trips declined or if they went with a less amount of money as far as the charge for number of trips. I mean, some of this stuff is just theory, but I did it very conservatively, and by funding it with the $50,000 and with what we could get back in trip charges plus our 10% return on what recycles get turned in, I arrived at a figure of around $76,000 worth of revenue, 50 from the city and 26,000 approximately from the service that we would provide, that we would get the feedback from. That would be enough to cover the trips, enough to cover 2 employees, and that would be 3 days a week. If the numbers did decline to the point where you could even cut back possibly to maybe 2 days a week, like Saturday, Sunday. But as opposed to just cutting recycling completely off, I would like to try to propose this to where we go one more year with this and see if the public who has come forward and said, oh, we would pay to do recycling, let's see if they pony up and do that. Do it for one more year and study it and see if it works. It works. We go on with it, and then we would have a sustainable recycling. I'd rather invest in the money, $50,000 in money into recycling, which helps our environment, as opposed to subsidizing a bus service that we don't even have control over. I mean, it's handled out of Kansas City. It's an area transit system. It's not our buses. It's cutting. When Mr. Johnson made the comment about them cutting a bus or us cutting a bus, it's really them that's cutting a bus. It's not us. We don't necessarily have control over that, I don't believe. Is that not correct, Mr. Johnson?
They're the program manager.
So if for some reason they decide they don't want to put bus service out in Blue Springs, it's out of our control unless we throw money at them. So at this point, I think, why should we be subsidizing something that we don't have any control over? The recycling effort, we would. So my amendment to the budget would be to nix the 50,000 line for the subsidy for the bus service and move that over to subsidize the recycling center, with the charge going back to the Solid Waste Commission to come up with an equitable fee per trip that we could try to, one, at least recoup some of our costs on that to where we could sustain that program.
I have a number of questions. Number one is, we got to balance the budget. Yours is on theories and what ifs and all of that. We have to balance the budget.
Correct.
Number one. Number two, are you seriously talking about cutting the buses out? Those people use those buses to get to work, so we want to throw them under the bus.
I guess you could say I'm throwing them under the bus, yes.
You're on.
And
Theoretically, because they
and-
haven't
and
cut
so-
the buses
and
yet.
so they're going to fill this chamber because they no longer can get to work because they've got a real problem with that. I just don't see this as a workable solution.
You're on it.
Yes,
Yep.
we're going to,
Again, we're here on the budget, and I understand Councilman Edmondson's approach and everything, but the only thing really that can be decided in the context of this meeting is whether or not to move $50,000 from whatever the line item is for buses down
To
to
recycling.
to the recycling, and all the other stuff about how that will affect things and is not being decided
relevant. Okay.
right now. I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't be decided, but it's not being decided right now. All you really should be voting on is whether you want to move 50,000 from the bus line down to the recycling line. And I don't even know if there is a recycling line.
And if we talk about the 50,000, that's not enough to cover keeping a recycling center open anyway, because that's $100,000 that we're looking at. Chris?
Well, I guess this brings up a good point. We right now are in first reading of this budget. There's nothing that says we have to pass the budget tonight, even first reading. An approach could be, because this is not the last change I think we have suggested up here, if we vote down this budget tonight, give staff a chance to respond to all this feedback. I mean, we had our work session in August, and then staff, we gave them all sorts of feedback in August, and the staff has no chance, or at least has not taken a chance, to respond to that feedback. So I think if we just vote down the budget tonight, give staff a chance to respond to our feedback and implement a new budget or propose a new budget that has those changes, and then we can pass it. I don't know if we're allowed to do charter-wise first and second reading on the same night, or if we'd have to have a special meeting to do that. But I think there's several changes here. We've already been told that legally, at the advice of our attorney, we can't make those changes. Then maybe we just need to start over. Not start over, but amend, have staff do the work to amend that budget so we can legally make those changes here tonight.
Staff has worked very diligently to put this budget together, and we had the work session on the 17th, so we've had ample time to come back to staff and make suggestions, and
Well-
some have responded and done that.
Well,
And
the
so
staff's
to
not
come-
made any changes to this budget, though, is what I'm saying. It still remains as proposed.
Right,
So-
because there's not been any, as far as I know, any changes that have come to them other than the ones that's been proposed tonight.
Well, yeah, but the ones that have been proposed tonight are important. They need to happen. So if they can't happen tonight, then we need to.
Well, you did
create
have
a
one that did
structure.
happen tonight,
Oh,
Councilman
part of it
Carter's.
happened tonight.
Councilman Carter's motion did
Yeah.
pass.
Well, I mean, we already have a motion and second, so I mean, we'll get to voting on the budget later. But I think that would be a solution, or maybe can staff respond to what that process would look like? Is there anything moving forward that if we were to do that tonight, what would be the next step?
Then you would first and second read at the same time.
Can we do that on the same night?
I don't think so, Bob. No, you cannot.
Yeah, so we'd have to have a special meeting to do first reading.
So
We've done first and second reading on the same night.
you can do first and second.
Oh, you can't do them on the same night. Well, that would be a suggestion I might make. Depending on how things go, I may be making that vote.
I would strongly discourage it from the council, but go ahead.
Well,
Councilman Culpepper.
Do I look perplexed?
Yes.
All right, I just want to clearly understand if Mr. McDonald could assist me here. So in order, if we go ahead and we pass this as has been presented, is there some reason that betwixt now and then on the second reading, there can't be some research and some possible amendments to it at that time? Is there something that says it has to be exactly the same on the second reading?
You can amend at the second reading.
So my thought is that, I'm very much in favor of the recycling center. I don't have all those, here again, I'm a numbers kind of person, and I'd like to see those numbers rather than sort of impossible, and how many people actually come through and how much revenue would there really be. If I had hard numbers to look at, I might be more in favor of making some changes. But to me, it seems like we need to get this first reading in, and then staff can check those couple of line items for us prior to the second reading. Is that appropriate?
Mr. Johnson?
Your Honor, just response on a couple of these items. Since the August 17th work session, there have been two items that have been brought to my attention that staff has responded to. One was Mr. Carter's amendment to the budget, and a desire and an interest by a majority of the council to look at a step plan program. And as you are aware, we've already engaged and are actively talking to a company to help us with that. It would be the same company that's been doing the work in Lee Summit. We've not yet made a determination that that's where we're going to be going, because that's contingent upon you passing the budget that allocates the money to do the work. So that's one item. The other item has been the recycling center. And frankly, between the seven of you, there has not been a consensus and a majority on which direction you want to go. So this budget is balanced on the basis that we're going to close the recycling center October 1. If there were to be an amendment and a change, we would need time to figure out how to implement that. Because if we're going to implement fees for residents and non-residents, now all of a sudden we are stopping people coming in the gates, we are collecting cash, we're managing cash, we're also managing the responsibility of the people who are working on our behalf to provide that service. As it is now, the facility is open, it's free, you come in. We have part-time employees that work for us. If those employees can't be there consistently or they have to leave the facility, not an issue. But if you're an employee collecting cash and all of a sudden you have to disappear and you're not going to be there, what kind of an impact does that provide on the operation? Those decisions and that analysis hasn't been performed. But if it's the decision of the city council that that's where you want to go, we'll figure out how to do it. As I say to this council every year, I give you the budget on August 1. It then becomes yours, and you make decisions to amend it and implement policies and programs as you see fit. And if that's the will of the council to do that, then we need a little bit of time to figure it out.
Does that answer your question, Councilman?
Well, sort of. So do we approve it tonight, and then on the second reading, if we want to make that change for the recycling center after we have the information? And I know that, this, when Kent started talking about this, it brought some thoughts to my mind that I hadn't thought about. So is that what we do? Approve it tonight and then make those amendments on the second reading, if we so choose?
So right now, Your Honor, you have amended the proposed budget with one amendment, and that is the step plan.
Mm-hmm.
You
Investigation.
did Councilman Edmondson's amendment get a second?
No.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion on that?
Just to make sure that, I guess we're all understanding what I'm suggesting would be, the amendment would be to change the line item from $50,000 to subsidize the buses to $50,000 going towards recycling, which recycling falls, it's under the council's banner program in the budget, or was last year in the budget. That's where it fell. So it would have to come back, I assume, in that location. I didn't keep track of the number. I probably should have, where it would go by the line item. I, at this point, would probably not want to recommend, based on what Mr. Johnson had said, an additional expense of the recycling center. My thoughts would be probably another $26,000 towards that would cover it. And that would impact the budget. But I would just go ahead with the original motion as far as the 50,000, let staff come back and say, these are the additional costs on it. And at the second reading, if the additional costs show that it's going to be way out of line, then we at that time can, I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, somebody, switch it back to the way it was originally on it. Is that agreeable with staff and you, Mayor?
Yeah, because, you know, the key to it is, unless staff comes back with an additional $50,000, we don't have a balanced budget, because that recycling center is $100,000. Taking $50,000 from the bus program is only halfway there.
And why would you switch it now?
If it's
Why
a
don't we just
non-balanced
leave it
budget
alone
motion,
and
why are
then
we
just?
entertaining it?
Well, see, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which goes back to my suggestion that we let staff handle this and we turn down the budget tonight, but.
Well, you don't have to, you don't have to
Because
turn
right
the
now,
budget down.
right now, staff suggestion is that the recycling center be closed. So how do we switch that to the recycling center stay open? Is money the only thing? Do we have to switch $100,000 and then that
You
continues
gotta
to
switch
fund it?
you gotta switch $100,000. This is not open for discussion. This is extremely.
Okay, I just wanted to say something about recycling.
No, I don't want you to say anything about it.
Okay, I was late, I'm sorry. The first meeting.
I need you to take your seat.
That's fine. First meeting was held under.
Take your seat.
You're gonna pass it no matter what, aren't you?
Now, back to the council.
Your Honor, if I may, I guess if the idea you want to express, I appreciate that. It does bring some thoughts to mind. It's just, I guess to me, it's more of the process. Back on August the 1st, it went public information that we were going to close the the recycling center, and that impacted me. I said, I don't want to do that, and I had to go study it and listen to staff, all their reasons, follow their logic. By the 17th, we had the work session, and there was no other action. So all this time, there's been over a month where the public has had this opportunity, and they should. This is the process, giving them the opportunity to communicate why it's a bad thing to close the recycling center. I think we all agree that. At the same time, if we're going to do that to the bus service, they need due process too.
Right.
They should have been told on August the 1st and have time to lobby us before the 17th, give us time to plan this out. Right now, you're saying, let's jump before we know where we're jumping into. So that's my concern with this process tonight.
Your Honor?
Yeah.
I agree with Councilman Fowler completely. And as we talked about the recycling center, as politically incorrect as it is to say it's a good idea to close the recycling center, it is. All the other cities around us have closed their recycling centers. Why have they done that? Because the price for these commodities has gone through the floor. It's not profitable anymore, and there is an option. You can call your trash hauler, and for $5 or $6 a month, they'll recycle for you. Mine was $5.
Well, where do you live, sir?
Hey, this is a council discussion right now. It's not for the
I
audience.
hate hearing this.
And as we discuss this further, we're talking about adding layers to this of who's going to collect money, who's going to do what. It just, I can't support it.
Well, Your Honor, since I've made the motion and it has been seconded, we do have to vote on it. So I would say at this point, let's go ahead and call a vote, because it looks to me by counting heads, it's not going to pass.
We could do that, or you could withdraw.
I can withdraw even though it's had a second?
He can
Yeah, as
withdraw
long as
his
they both
second.
withdraw.
I'd like us to vote on it.
Okay. Okay, let's roll call it.
Okay, if I could just reiterate that what the motion is currently, I have it that to amend the proposed 2017-18 budget to provide $50,000 for recycling, and the funds for the bus service be reduced by the same amount.
Right.
Okay. Councilman Fowler?
No.
Councilman Carter?
No.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Culpepper?
No.
Councilman Kaler?
Aye.
Councilman Levesey?
Aye.
Mayor Ross?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay. Is there anything else?
So then you're back to the first reading of the budget as amended.
Yeah, first reading of the budget as amended.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I'd like to ask a question. Can we bring up the discussion again about delaying renovation at City Hall? I'm not against it being renovated. I just think we need to delay it. I don't think this is the best time to start it now, given the projections of a flat growth for 17-18, and I'd like to just entertain a discussion why we couldn't delay it.
Well, you received the correspondence that I sent to every council member. If you delay it, you're talking 3 to 5% increase in costs, which we don't have to do because you say it's flat. We don't have an additional 3 to 5%. Right now, that money's been set aside to do it. And ironically, you bring it up because I was in a meeting today with staff and a developer, and his team came in. They're looking at development in property. And unsolicited, he said he was really shocked when he came up to City Hall today. Is this your City Hall? You need a City Hall. And we told him it's been there since 1961. And we've since taken the building that used to be when we had EMS, the old ambulance garage. We also have duplexes down the hill. So we got everything scattered within that complex. And this is connecting those two buildings as well as making it ADA compliant. We've got the money to do it, and even with that, we've had to make some adjustments and cuts. So kicking the can down the road is not going to solve the issue.
Is the funds that are available right now will take care of the project completely?
Yeah. The funds we have right now will take care of it. And plus, we've already signed contracts for over $500,000 with a couple of companies. Well, we have
Let me
kick it in.
May I respond to that?
Yeah.
So we're under contract right now with SFS Architecture and Turner Construction. And if this project moves forward, the plan would be to move out of the facility in January of 2018 and begin the renovation. We are still trying to close a gap on the budget. We have a budget that I have made a commitment to the city council that it will not creep. And so Dennis and Christine are diligently working right now with SFS and Turner to close the gap on that project. So we're trying to make it fit within the budget.
Well,
Here.
just,
Yes.
I was just going to say, I'm very involved with the economic development in this community, and I think it's interesting, and this is, you are going out and you're saying, we want you to bring your multi-million-dollar corporation that's going to bring however many employees to our community. We want you to build a nice building, redo your side of the street, put in your curbs. We ask a lot. We have a lot of restrictions because we want this community to be successful. And it's very difficult to say, bring your $40 million corporation to our city, but this city is not willing to spend a couple of dollars on their own city hall. And that makes it very, very difficult. If you have a developer come into this community and you have to bring them to the public safety building because they cannot access, because they are maybe in a wheelchair, they can't even get in our city hall. I think that's a very sad commentary. I would like to be proud of our city, and I'd like to be able to say, we invest in ourselves, so we're asking you also to invest in us.
Your Honor, with all due respect, I think we're spending more than a couple of bucks on this thing. What is the budget? Is it $6.5 million?
6.1.
6.1. Can we get a hard cap on that so we don't have creep? I don't want it to turn into a $20 million project.
Any budget increase would have to come back to the city council and you'd have to approve that. So there's nothing that I'm authorized to increase the budget that you would not see or vote on or discuss or debate. So your cap is at 6.1 right now.
Which is a quarter of the $23 million we spent to build this facility, to restructure this facility.
But Your Honor,
That
It didn't start at $23 million. It got there.
Yeah, that we're very proud of, and certainly this is a crown jewel for the downtown area. And again, as we continue to encourage development downtown, City Hall, quite frankly, is kind of an embarrassment. And also, it's not good for our employees because we need to put all our employees under one roof. Instead of, well, you need to go down the hill to this part to get that done. This will put everybody in the same building.
Well, I agree with that, but when we started talking about this project, it started at 2 million and it's at 6.1 now. So
Well,
it's
when-
already
well, when it
grown
first
quite a
started
bit.
In 2006, when they first started talking about it, it was 14 million. So it's gone down.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Well, I don't know if Councilman Kaler's motion has been seconded, but I'll second to delay it for a
It
year.
was not a motion.
It wasn't a motion, okay.
It's not a motion.
Well, then, just based on discussion, I think my concern is, I don't think anybody's expressed an intention to not at some point renovate City Hall. I think even Councilman Kaler said that. I think the concern is, in light of this budget, and we're talking about closing the recycling center, we're only at a 2% raise for employees, we're cutting 2 staff members, which, as I've said in previous meetings, that from my recollection, were great staff members that were doing an excellent job that by no fault of their own are losing their job because of this budget. So we're making big, significant cuts and strengthened and tightening our belts and all of that. And yet we're going to go spend $6.5 million on a City Hall renovation.
6.1.
$6.1 million, even if it was $3 million.
Yeah.
We're spending in a significant amount on a renovation that maybe now is just not the time to do. So I support at some point renovating City Hall.
So when is that point?
Well, I think-
Naturally, City Hall is the last one that's going to get the attention, but we have employees at City Hall too. We also have people that are coming to the city, like I indicated earlier, that come there, and if they start their development process, you come into this building, then we send you to another building. They're not going to put up with that when they've got other communities. They don't have to do that.
Well, they've put up with it for 30 years now, so I'm surprised
Well-
if next year it's going to change. I would support delaying it a year. I will make that motion to delay the City Hall project a year.
And I would encourage the
And-
council to reject that.
Well, and I would not want to delay it based on facts that I know. I think I said in our meeting that you can't be half pregnant. And right now, we're more than half pregnant in this thing. I mean, we have agreements in place. It needs to move forward. My concern continues to be it not going above the stated number and not, a year down the road saying, oh, I'm sorry, we've got to do this over here, so it's going to take another $1.5 million. I want a hard cap at 6.1.
And if you go ahead and get it done, you can cap it and get it done. But if you delay it, you're talking 3 to 5% increase, which you won't have the money to do. Yes.
Yeah, Your Honor, for a delay, I guess I'd want it quantified. Tell me how much it's going to cost us to delay a year, because if I sign up with a developer to build a house and I just go in the middle of it, say, stop, let's wait a year, I'm going to be hit with some expenses. So what are they? And you've made this proposal. How much are we going to be paying for this?
We've been 3 to 5%, but there's no guarantee of that. I'm gonna say it's not gonna delay it at all. It won't, no extensive cost. There's no way to quantify that number. It's a theoretical concept. So I'm going to tell you, there's no additional cost. It's going to be the same next year. And
I've
then
got
we
a
can have that
bridge,
discussion
and I
next
got a
year with the
bridge.
cost.
I got a bridge I want to say in front of my house.
You have a motion on it?
We have a motion. Did you make a motion? You made a
I
motion.
made the motion to
I
delay.
second.
And you second the motion. Okay, yes.
I assume what this motion is to take that funds out of the budget. This
To
year's
remove
budget.
the funds for the budget for this fiscal year, yes.
So where do you put it?
Put them in the unassigned fund balance.
Or just leave them where they are.
Yeah, we can,
Say just-
if they need to stay in that account, that's
You
appropriate.
direct staff
Yeah.
to stop work on it.
Direct staff to stop work on it, although there's a $500,000 contract already out there.
Which will still be in effect next year.
I don't think so. There's some legal issues with that I discussed with our city attorney, who is on vacation right now. So it could be greater than that.
Okay.
But anyway, let's take a vote.
If we can, please recap the
Recap.
motion, is just to move, Councilman Levisay moved to delay the City Hall renovation for 1 year. That's what is on the
And
table.
leave the funds in the budget where they currently are, yes.
Okay.
Roll call it, please.
Councilman Carter.
No.
Councilman Edmondson.
Yes.
Councilman Culpepper.
No.
Councilman Kaler.
Yes.
Councilman Levisay.
Aye.
Councilman Fowler.
No.
Mayor Ross.
No.
Motion fails.
Motion fails. Okay, so now we're back to
As amended.
first reading of the budget
As amended.
as amended. So did we,
We made the motion.
we make, yeah. You made the motion and you second it. Okay,
Yep, so
roll
just
call,
name-
please.
roll call. Councilman Edmondson?
No.
Councilman Culpepper?
Aye.
Councilman Kaler?
No.
Councilman Levesey?
No.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Carter?
Aye.
Mayor Ross?
Aye.
Motion carries. And the second reading?
We, at the next meeting.
We'll be at the
will
next meeting.
September 18th.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you wore out yet? Okay, well, we'll move on to the next public hearing. Is Hannah's Place Phase 2 project tax abatement.
Mayor, the city has the following exhibit to enter into the record. City Council Information Form dated August 25, 2017, from Economic Development Manager Mark Stombaugh with the following attachments. Main Center Redevelopment Tax Abatement Program application with attachments. Main Center Redevelopment Corporation Board of Directors meeting minutes from August 15, 2017. Notice of public hearing, letter to taxing jurisdictions sent on August 16, 2017. Taxing jurisdictions, distribution list, tax impact analysis, certified mail receipts, and bill number 4515 with abatement agreement attached as Exhibit A. This is all we have to offer for the record.
Mark?
Good evening, Your Honor, members of council. Appreciate the opportunity to introduce the proposed Hannah's Place Phase 2 tax abatement project for you this evening. It's green. It's green. As I said, introduce the Hannah's Place Phase 2 tax abatement project for you. And then after the public hearing this evening, the bill approving the project as well as the abatement agreement will be before you for your consideration. The background on the project is provided to you. Dwellings by Design, Kansas City, KC, has submitted a tax abatement application back in April of this year, proposing a redevelopment project including the additions of public infrastructures, including alleyway, water lines, sewer, and stormwater detention to facilitate the construction of 8 new rear entry 2-story residential single-family homes. Over the course of several months, the project developer, city staff, as well as taxing jurisdictions and other groups discussed the project at length with the goal of minimizing and with the goal of complying with the MCRC policy as it relates to the impact of residential development on the school district as well as other taxing entities. We believe with the 5-year negotiated abatement level this evening that was minimized. The bill approving the project also approves the language in the abatement agreement between the MCRC and the developer, Dwellings by Design, Kansas City. That agreement spells out the rights of the corporation to provide the tax abatement to the developer, and it defines the duties and timelines on the development going forward. The details on the tax abatement itself would be for each residential lot, each of the 8 lots. The abatement would be limited in a couple specific ways. Number one, with the duration being a 5-year limit on that. The total project cost comes in, as the developer has budgeted, a little bit over $1.6 million. The value of that tax abatement as provided to all the taxing jurisdictions in the tax impact analysis is just over $97,000 or $97,308. The resulting effect actually keeps most of the taxing jurisdictions at the same level of tax they're receiving today. There just wouldn't be a considerable increase until year 6. And that is just a factor of subdividing the lots, and there will still remain some real property improvements that won't be included in the abatement. The termination of 5 years, what you see in the abatement agreement language and the ordinance language spells out that it's the earlier of 5 years or that cap of their total investment. In this instance, since it's a 5-year window, that won't be applicable. The 5 years will kick in before they've received too much of that abatement. The project's also planning on taking advantage of the recently approved permit reduction program that we instituted in the Main Center Redevelopment Corporation area. The estimates based on their project budget is about $30,000 or $32,000 across those 8 units. I also included some language. Typically, we like to package the approvals before you all associated along with the planning-related approvals, which in this instance would be the final plat approval for Hannah's Place Phase 2. That plat would be scheduled to be reviewed or approved by the Planning Commission as well as yourselves, projected probably late October. In this instance, to get to the final plat, all of the public infrastructure improvements would need to be in place. And I can let the developer speak to that budget figure, but a substantial commitment to the project. And so it's being presented tonight as pending the approval. The project moving forward is contingent upon that approval of the abatement. The project was recommended for approval by the MCRC Board of Directors at their meeting on August the 15th, and that was a unanimous decision. I can certainly speak to any of the attachments or referenced exhibits if you have any questions on the tax impact analysis or anything else.
Any questions, Mark?
As well, our outside counsel, Mr. Bushek, is here if you have any questions on the process or the specifics of it.
Any questions of either one of them from the council? Seeing none.
Your Honor, I just have one comment I'd like to make. I know that we really are excited about developing more and more in our downtown and having good development. And when I look at this, this is a 5-year tax abatement. Could have been 10, and I think it's great that they are putting this investment into our community and willing to lessen the stress on our budget, if you will.
Thank you. Going to the public, anyone in the audience would like to speak in support of? Support of? Support of? Are you the applicant?
Yes.
All
sir,
right.
I am. Mike Yancek, Dwellings by Design.
You want to be sworn in?
I'm sorry.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. I'll apologize in advance. I think this podium, it makes my brain go on like a 5-second delay every time I get up here to try to talk. So I'll try to get through it. But downtown Blue Springs needs help. So this tax abatement is not about the 8 houses that we're trying to do. It's about the resurrection of downtown. My partner and I, John Broker, we have some crazy passion for this downtown. It's kind of like you talked about, all you guys up here doing what you do for the amount of money that you do it for, and you're just doing this to try to help the city and try to bring it forward. But in the last 10 years, I believe the downtown improvement district, it came on about 10 years ago, and we were the first and one of the only developers, and 1 or 2 projects I think have ran through this. So if we don't all do something to try to get something going on in downtown, we're going to be standing here in 10 years trying to get something else to happen. So we've got a big investment in downtown Blue Springs, and we feel that if we can get these 8 houses off the ground and do a nice job and bring a good product in to the public that's at an affordable price, then our other projects will move, and it'll bring customers and rooftops and people downtown to go to restaurants and bars, and people will want to come to downtown Blue Springs. But right now it's just stagnant, and there has been a few restaurants and a few places remodeled, but for the most part in 10 years there hasn't been a lot going on. So we're asking for this tax abatement to try to offset some of these site improvement costs that we have, these site improvement costs are being passed on to the home buyer. So before the recession, our houses were $139,000. Right now, the same house with escalating subcontractor and material cost, and then all the site improvement costs that we have here, the same house is $191,000, and that scares us a lot that we're going to be in downtown Blue Springs in its current state at that kind of money. So if we can pass along this tax abatement to the homeowner and get their payment down like it's a $160,000 house or whatever the number would be, that we feel like it'll help to get things moving down here. And I know that
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
I know there is an impact to the school district and the fire department at some level. I don't think it's much, but I don't know the numbers of all that, but I'm hoping if we can figure out how to make that work, so this will get us some growth down there. I think in the long-term 5-10-year plan, that's going to be paid back tenfold.
You're on. I just wanted to say real quick, I appreciate this project and for all you're doing for downtown. I know Councilman Edmondson and myself has worked with Mr. Broker and yourself as well to do this permit reduction and to do, you've stuck with us for several years now. So I just want to say I appreciate you sticking with it. I noticed from the plans, this is phase 2 of maybe phase 4.
Yeah.
So we're excited to see what else you can come up with and continue to develop that area.
Appreciate
so thank
that.
you for this project.
Yep. And with the high, Walnut has a high volume of traffic, and we have some really new front elevations that are they're still traditional, but they're more relevant to today's time, and we're going to do a great job, as that Walnut is going to be kind of a showpiece with all the people driving up and down. So we're hoping we can get some excitement back in and just hopefully be able to move just right on down the road and get this, turn this thing into what the vision I think we all probably have for it.
Okay, well, thank you for those comments, and again, we appreciate what you're doing.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else in the audience like to speak in support of? Support of. Opposition to. Opposition to. Close the public hearing. Anyone like to introduce it?
Your Honor, if I may make a comment real quick on the record.
Okay.
Councilman Livesey spoke about the fact that we've been working on this for a couple of years, and I'd like to say that though you indicated that it's been 10 years, I think we've grown by leaps and bounds in downtown with one, the opening of new locations that can serve the public, as opposed to service organizations that basically answer phones and don't really bring people downtown. One of the things that a business counts on is rooftops and people coming to it. And with these type of projects and with what changes we've made to try to help support these projects, I think there's a new renaissance that's going to hit downtown and continue to keep it growing and keep that projected growth continuing over a long period of time. Really is exciting times. I do know that there's some significant investments that are coming to downtown along with the development, but on the business side of it. So it's nice to see some of this happening, and we definitely appreciate that. And just want to go on record with that and let everybody know that we do appreciate all that we've done to get this going.
Certainly density is important, and Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem Carter and I still haven't given up on commuter rail.
Definitely not giving up on that.
No.
And I think that would make a huge difference to downtown Blue Springs.
Okay, now who would like to introduce it?
I introduce it, Your Honor.
Okay.
First reading of bill number 4515. An ordinance approving the Hannah's Place Phase 2 project under the amended and restated Main Center redevelopment plan and approving an abatement agreement for the project.
Move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All same sign?
Second reading of bill number 4515, an ordinance approving the Hannah's Place Phase 2 project under the amended and restated Main Center redevelopment plan and approving an abatement agreement for the project.
Move the bill be approved on second reading and given the appropriate ordinance number.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Councilman Culpepper?
Aye.
Councilman Kaler?
Aye.
Councilman Levesey?
Aye.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Carter?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Mayor Ross?
Aye.
Carried unanimously, given ordinance number 4683.
Next introduction and reading of bill 4516.
I'll introduce, Your Honor.
Okay.
First reading of bill number 4516, an ordinance amending the 2016-17 annual budget of the city of Blue Springs, Missouri.
Move the bill be approved on the first reading and proceed with the second.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Your Honor.
Aye.
Oh, yep, sorry. Go back.
I did have something I wanted to mention, and this is really, I guess, general in budget. I probably should, with all the proposed amendments, it probably would have been good to talk about the budget earlier. good ideas over time happen, okay? The recycling center, it was mentioned many years, many different options, et cetera, before it ever occurred. This building we're in tonight, it was talked in many different formats, and ultimately, good ideas got implemented. City Hall may well be one of those that are going to be implemented in the future too, but I also got to say that, you know, whether it's a step plan, a run plan, a crawl plan, whatever kind of plan it is, that there's been enough energy around City Hall that something's going to happen one of these days, okay? It's the process we have to go through of planning it and understanding what are the best options. So I guess my history has been that good ideas get implemented, things get resolved. It does take time, though. It's just the process.
Can we all hug now?
Okay.
Kumbaya.
And I'll tell you what, we're not giving up on recycling. I know if you look at what we're doing tonight, yeah, we're closing the doors, but this community's not, this community, all communities, our next generation is not going to give up on recycling. Somehow it's coming back.
You know, I'm optimistic that with the engagement of the community and with the Solid Waste Commission, that they will come up with a workable long-term solution. Maybe it was ahead of its time when it was brought to us before, and I still am committed and believe seriously that if you can minimize the trash trucks on the streets, it's going to save our public works a lot of money every year with the wear and tear of our streets. Now, it was brought out at that town hall meeting that it was in excess of 60 or 70% of the people said they either support it or they somewhat supported it. But those weren't the people that showed up when we had the hearing. It was the naysayers that showed up. So I think if there's enough passion by the people that want to do something, if they show up and let their desires be known at the proper times, we can get something done. So I think your comments were very well received. Okay, now I lost where we were.
First reading, yeah.
You
We have a
just
second.
okay, we have a second, and you want to make some comments.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Second reading of bill number 4516, an ordinance amending the 2016-17 annual budget of the city of Blue Springs, Missouri.
Move the bill be approved on second reading and given the appropriate ordinance number.
Second,
Second.
discussion, roll call.
Councilman Kaler?
Aye.
Councilman Levesey?
Aye.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Carter?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Culpepper?
Aye.
Mayor Ross?
Aye.
Carried unanimously, given ordinance number 4684.
Now, mayoral announcements. Want to remind everybody the Fall Fun Fest weekend is weekend after this one. And you have your shirts and your masks because this year is with Mardi Gras or something. That's what they're calling it?
Yeah.
No,
I hope
right.
that's why.
Put our mask on.
And everybody's going to be in the parade?
I don't know that I can make it, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, it's good this meeting is just about concluded. So anyway, Fall Fun Fest, try to attend if you can. And that's going to bring me to thoughts to ponder. Tonight's author is unknown, but it said if you want the rainbow, you've got to put up with the rain. End quote. Don't have any other visitors' appearance forms. So I would accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All same sign, motion carries. We are adjourned.